Good morning. I am Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show, broadcasting on Spirituality Gone Wild Network and also on the American Gumption Facebook page and the American Gumption YouTube channel. So welcome to today's show number 141 on Thursday, March 11th. March 11th. All righty, here we go. So yeah, going to have Kristi Holt joining us at about 15 past the hour, maybe even a few minutes before that. She is the CEO of Vibeonix, and her company has created a technology, well, maybe not created it, but put it all together, a technology that actually can measure the vibration of your voice, and it is giving you basically a fingerprint or a digital readout of some type. We're going to find out exactly what, but it's basically going to equate to what your emotions and what the vibration that you're doing, and works great in a coaching situation where if you're a coach and you have a client, you can actually measure what somebody might be feeling at any given time. So we'll get into that with Kristi coming up, like I said, at about 15 past the hour. And my monologue today, coincidentally, is called Vibrations, Vibeonix and Vibrations. So that'll be happening just in a minute after the announcements of what's happening coming up. So tomorrow on the show, Greg Thompson is joining us. Now, Greg and I go back about 12 years, maybe a little longer, and from the celebrity impersonators days and the celebrity impersonators conventions. That's when I first met Greg. And so we'll go. He has the domain now, celebrityimpersonators.com, but he has his own business. He's a booking agent, a talent agent, and he's an entertainer and a impersonator lookalike himself. And so anyway, we will be going all through the lookalike world. If you've ever been curious about the lookalike world, you want to tune into tomorrow's show. Greg M. Thompson joining us tomorrow. All righty. Now, next Tuesday, Amy Gray Cunningham comes back to the show. She was here 2 weeks ago, or it'll be 2 weeks ago on Tuesday that she was here. So she was here a week ago Tuesday, 9 days ago, and she is the living kidney donor, but she is also a coach. She might be interested in the Vibeonix technology to work with her clients, but she does an Akashic Records reading. And so she did an Akashic Records reading with me, and Amy is going to join us on Tuesday, and we're going to talk about my Akashic Record, some of my soul's history from past lives and from this current life. And so that was a very interesting, fun, very revealing. I don't want to call it an exercise, because it was like it was something deeper than an exercise. So I'm not sure what I'll call it, but we'll just call it the Akashic Record reading. That's Tuesday with Amy Gray Cunningham, and then on Wednesday will be my last broadcast show from the East Coast, because I'm going on a couple of week journey. I'm going to fly out to the West Coast. I'm going to pick up a car and drive it back, but I'm not just going to drive it back. I'm going to take like a meandering path back, and I'm going to stop and visit some friends along the way, and I'll be broadcasting from the road. So I will be doing this show from the road for about a 3.5 week period. I expect to be back somewhere in Pennsylvania about April 10th. So it's almost 3.5 weeks that I'll be on the road traveling. So that starts next Wednesday after I do the show here. And then I think Thursday, Friday, or maybe Thursday or Friday, I'll probably do a show from the West Coast at my normal time. And then after that, the shows might be hit or miss in terms of the exact timing, just because if I'm on the West Coast and I have to get up early, who wants to do that? My West Coast, I appreciate my West Coast guests getting up early, but if I have to be the person to do that, I'm not sure I want to do that. All righty. So that's how I vibe around here. All right. So let's go into today's monologue, the vibrations. And so obviously I'm picking up off Vibeonix, coming up with Kristi Holt. We're going to be talking about that. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about, the whole vibration thing, because this is something that, 10 years ago completely sounded like woo-woo to me. But little by little, I warmed up to the idea, and instinctively I understood it. But then the last 10 years and the last 5 years for sure, and the last couple of years, like really started to understand the technology and the actual science behind vibration. So I'll start out by saying the Beach Boys had a song in the 60s called Good Vibrations. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. I love that they made up a word to rhyme with vibrations, excitations. But this excitement. So excitement was the feeling, and the vibe, the good vibrations were what people send out to each other. And the excitement, the excitations are the feelings that they're talking about in the song. So it's a love song. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitations. There's excitement about being in love, and so that's really the key to this whole thing. And the Beach Boys understood it in the 60s. So anyway, I just we'll start out with that. But we all give off a vibe. We all give off a vibe. And when we're in love, when we really like somebody, that's like a good vibe. That's the ultimate vibe. That is the ultimate vibe. And then we also pick up vibes that are not so positive, and they are the lower vibration vibes. So the love is the highest of vibrations, and being depressed or despair, that's at the opposite end. And really think about the vibrations as kind of that sine wave, that flowing chart that you see. If you have an oscilloscope, it measures vibrations, and there's other machines that measure vibrations. And so anyway, the frequency, the amount of space between the peaks, between the upper and the lower, that's like a frequency, like from one upper to one. Well, those are shorter. They're higher vibrations, and then in lower vibrations, they're more spread out. And so you're saying, hey, I'm feeling kind of flat today. Well, that's a lower vibration. Or I don't have a lot of energy. That's a lower vibration. Oh man, I'm in love. That's like the highest vibration. And there's all kinds of other vibrations in between. I'm going to show a chart in just a second to show what that means. So, we've all been in a room with a person giving off a strong vibration, and sometimes we like that person, right? That's a good vibe, right? Somebody just kind of makes everybody else feel good. And then there's other people who kind of make everybody else feel, not so good. And, we've all experienced that sort of thing. So we do have the ability to pick up that vibration. But we didn't talk about that really. I mean, we talk about, like, can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you feel it? Can you hear it? Well, the vibration isn't something that you can kind of see it in a way, like by a person's body language. And you can kind of hear it in the tone of their voice, but it's really more of a sensing thing that you pick up on, and you just either have like a good feeling or you have not such a good feeling with it. So now let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to show a chart, and this is off of the Vibeonix. The Vibeonix website is where I'm borrowing this, but I've seen a similar chart to this before. Here we go. And up at the top, you can see, there's love. That's that pink. That's that high vibration. And down way at the bottom, there's the depressed or despair. And then in the middle, my goodness, you have all kinds of, like, let's start kind of more at the top. You got ambition, happiness, engaged, confidence, assurance, adaptive, curiosity, ease. And then it starts to get, bored, frustration, stressed, overwhelmed, confused. Those are kind of in that middle range. They're not like the super negative vibes, but they're no longer at that upper end. So it's like really kind of the way I look at this chart. There's like there's that top level vibes that are all pretty good, and then there's that middle level vibes that are, we'll call them neutral at best, and then there's that lower third of the vibes that are kind of more in the, not such a great place to be. So what are some of those ones down at the bottom? Anger, jealousy, loneliness, fear, sorrow, longing, and then depressed and despair way down at the bottom. So this is interesting because, I can see myself in a range of these different emotions. I'm going to tell two quick stories here. So the first one is, like, where am I kind of in general in my vibration? And this is not scientific looking at it. This is just sort of me being aware. And I've been doing this work for the last 10 years and trying to pay attention and be aware of it. So I would say that by and large, I stay in the upper range quite a bit, but I also dip into that middle range quite a bit too. And I would say confused, which is kind of this brown, like right here in the middle. Boy, I've spent a lot of time the last 10 years in that confused area in terms of what was I really supposed to be doing with my life and my career, and where do I go next? And I even, I became aware just in the last couple of months about like, gee, I'm creating my own confusion by talking about confusion. So I've been I've been starting to use the word clarity a lot more and saying I have clarity. I'm gaining clarity. I'm focusing on clarity as opposed to confusion sort of thing. So anyway, the confusion. The reason why I wanted to mention that is that's where I would regularly dip down into that, and then I would go into the upper areas, the engaged, attentive and alert, focused, actually curious. I was curious for a long time, and I think I've jumped up into the attentive and the alert and focused area, and of course then confidence comes right after that, and so this show has been like a very positive thing because it's forced me to be more attentive and more focused and more disciplined, and so I went from curiosity about lots of different things to being able to actually be engaged in lots of different things as I interview these different guests, and then that increases confidence and happiness along. So anyway, but if I look back at what was happening prior to the last couple of years, when I was kind of like I've been in this state of confusion the last, like should I do this? Should I do that? Well, there was a lot of times where I was doubt and timid. That confusion led to that lower vibration, and there was jealousy over people who I saw who were having more success than me. Why couldn't I have more success? And I never felt lonely, even though I was alone a lot the last 10 years. But there was certainly fear in there, and I can say that I don't think I dipped down into sorrow or depressed very often. If you all get a little bit of a depression here or there, but I never hung around in that spot for long. So that's kind of the overview of what that's all about. Let's see, my screen is acting a little bit weird here. I don't know. Okay, now I feel like I got my control back on the screen. Now, I was in a meeting yesterday. So second story, I promised you 2 story, and I tried to be attentive and alert and focused, and curious. That was the posture I wanted to. I didn't necessarily make a strategic decision to do it, but I think in general, that's how I would have approached any kind of a meeting that I'm in: attentive, alert, focused, with curiosity. But I also found myself about a bit confused. I found myself doubting, hearing some things, and I was doubting, and I probably had a little bit of anger because there was someone else had anger. And that kind of, got me riled up a little bit. There's like kind of threatening type of language that was being, threatening posturing. And that sort of, dipped me down, into that kind of lower range. I didn't stay there. But what was interesting about as I looked at the meeting is like I went through this range of emotions, bouncing back and forth, during the time with it. So anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to do in sharing the screen today. Show that and the vibrations, and I'm going to wrap up by just saying that someone who is a hero, a teacher, is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And one of the things that he says a lot of stuff, and I've listened to a lot of it. I've learned a lot. But one of the things he says that always, like when I hear him say it, I love it. It says, you have to think about what you're thinking about. You have to think about what you're thinking about. And maybe really what this little analysis that I just did was thinking about what I was feeling about. But of course, your thinking is what creates your feelings. And so, we can measure the feelings a little bit more than the quantifiable. What are you thinking about? But the feelings were generated from it. So anyway, I just love that, you have to think about what you're thinking about in order to make changes in your life. That's the reason why he says that. If you want to make changes, you need to be aware. You need to have a consciousness and awareness to that. So, alrighty. So that kind of wraps up my vibrations monologue. Hopefully that was informative and a good launching pad to our guest who is in the green room warming up. Hopefully she's been getting good vibrations in the back in the back room. But let's go ahead and welcome Kristi Holt to the show. I'm going to change. There we go. We're going to put the Kristi banner up there. Hello, Kristi Holt. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Hello. Good morning, Steve. What a fun, welcoming conversation about vibration.
Yeah, well, you inspired me. Vibeonix is like, it's been on my mind ever since we met. I actually heard you interviewed on another program, and and you mentioned Dr. Joe, and that's what caught my attention. I was like, I was hooked. I go, I love this woman already. Who is she? I want to know who she is. I don't even know who she is, and I'm vibing with her. So anyway, I'm glad that we had a meeting a week or two ago, and we kind of just got to know each other a little better. And I wanted to make sure I understood what Vibeonix was about in a basic sense. And so then that's why you're here. So I really appreciate it. Now, Kristi, there's two things that have to happen at the beginning of the guest segment. And so they're kind of rules. And, I don't know if you're like a rule breaker or not, but here's the deal. Rule number one is I have to read the bio and intro and let people know who you are. And then you're cool with that? Is that okay?
Absolutely. But I am a rule breaker. You should know. I don't follow other people's rules very well.
Neither do I. That's why I was like feeling a little bit funky during that meeting yesterday. It was like, rules. And okay, so we'll read the bio. That's an easy one. We'll get that out of the way, and that'll just introduce who you are. And then there's a song that I play for first-time guests. So anybody who comes on the show for the first time, we play a little theme song, and it's called the First-Time Guest Theme Song because I couldn't think of a better name. And then after that, we don't have any more rules other than have a good time.
Great, let's do it.
All righty. So who is Kristi Holt? Kristi is the CEO of Vibeonix. Of course, that already says it right there on the scrolling logo. So that's how you're going to find Kristi. So Vibeonix provides a tool for personal awareness and growth. Their scientifically proven algorithms measure your voice frequency. Vibeonix's measurable tool will help you identify factors that play significant roles in all aspects of your mental and emotional health. Imagine your voice is like a thumbprint or a fingerprint, right? It's unique to every person. And so you are distinguished by your unique frequencies. The vibration of your voice, along with the Vibeonix technology, can show you your current vibration and emotions, including happiness, love, ambition, curiosity, and loneliness. This awareness brings an understanding of choice in how you think, feel, and act every day. Through scientifically proven algorithms, you can check your vibe. You can check your vibe. I like that, man. Then you will then be better able to understand your emotions and how they are creating your reality. And I think the key thing here is that, like, you could just sort of like take like a checkpoint and go, you kind of know how you're feeling, but now you're getting like a data point that says, oh, this is how. So then you can go, well, do I want to keep feeling that, or do I want to go in like one direction or the other? Usually we want to go in one direction.
Yep.
So Kristi's motto is, let's change the world. And that's what you're doing with this technology. You're hoping that people will, change themselves. And so, so we all want to change. Kristi is a serial entrepreneur and visionary with 20 years of experience creating startups, building startups, leading teams, and creating successful exit experiences. So, Kristi Holt, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. It's a pleasure and honor to have you here this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, let's play the first time guest theme. You ready?
I'm ready. after that because you just when you think it's going to end, it keeps going.
Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a broadcast before?
No, I haven't. That was a first. Thank you so much, Steve. I'm already like feeling it.
Good. Well, welcome. That's the Washington Post March written by John Philip Sousa back in the 1880s, I believe. So, we're borrowing that. We're borrowing that technology. 120 years later, or 115 years later. So, hey, a friend of mine had a great conference yesterday. Bettina, she's checking in. She checks in regularly. Bettina, pay attention to what Kristi's going to talk about because this is right up your alley. So, anyway, you've been a law of attraction and a fan of law of attraction and like thoughts become things. How did that begin for you? Where was where was the kind of like light bulb moment when your life went, oh my gosh, we're responsible for what we create by what we think. I mean, how did that happen for you?
Well, I would say, so I did not grow up with like parents teaching me this or really, I mean, I did grow up with parents who gave me self-help books all the time. Like when I was a teenager, when we'd get in trouble, my dad, instead of grounding us, he would make us read a self-help book and then report back to him about this book. So I did start reading really interesting things at a young age, like Think Big. And that's one that really registered as the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was a really good one for me. So I started really thinking about what I think about at a young age, like you mentioned earlier. And self-development, I think reading a lot of those books in my high school years, I realized, wow, I have to be responsible for me. And I think that was extremely helpful, even though I was so annoyed when I had to read those books. But I found myself falling in love with the idea of thought leadership at a very, very young age. And then I went to a leadership camp when I was 14 over in North Carolina with this big, my parents grew up in multi-level marketing. And so we were always like inspired to read all these self-development books and go to these leadership camps. And Dexter Yeager at the time, his sons put on a leadership conference. When I was there, we learned about DISC, personality test.
Yep.
I was like, wow, so what is a personality? And what does that mean? And then I learned like what you're born with and then what you create from your environment. And that I remember thinking, oh, so you kind of have this thing that you're born into, which now I would call like a program or operating system, right? And then you get to think and make choices on your own and you kind of become a product of your environment. And I remember thinking about that at a very young age. So I thought, so if I can learn this, can I unlearn it? Or what can I learn and how can I change it? So, and then what do I want to create? So I started putting that together at 14. I know that sounds really weird that I was that deep of a thinker back then, but my dad taught me to think. That's one thing, like he just celebrated his 72nd birthday and I posted about him and I sat and thought like, what did I get from him that I absolutely am so proud of? And he taught me to think. So at a very young age, I was aware of my thoughts and I was aware of my thinking. And then fast forward to when I was 21, I started my own company and got a master aesthetics license, which means I was around women mostly all day long and just listening and hearing about their lives and hearing about their stories and realizing like some of the connections in those stories about when they thought about it and then it would happen, or they grew up this way and then this is what they kept experiencing. So I remember putting some of those things together and that's really when I started to learn about energy. I know you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to just go here.
Go for it.
When I was an esthetician, I would put my hands on these women's heads and feet and I could feel their vibe. Like I could feel their energy, and nobody talked about energy really in my family. In fact, I got deemed as the sister that was pretty woo-woo because I remember thinking like, I can feel something bigger than me. And they're like, oh, that's the spirit. And I was like, okay, but the way I was taught what that wasn't equating to what I was experiencing. And I was like, yeah, but it's like this thing that's like giving me information, and it's about what I'm feeling. And it was quite confusing for me. And if I talked about energy and spirituality in the same sentence, people were like, that's not the same. Like, it's so different, and that's taboo. And so I kind of got a little bit warped about spirituality and energy that didn't, and now today I would say it's 100% the same thing. But I started kind of learning about this energetic field, and that it existed, and that I was somehow feeling it, which I was feeling this vibe, right? And then translating it in my mind, and it was accurately being translated. And let me explain what that means. Is that weird?
No, and you did share when we talked earlier one story where you were feeling something and you said something to a person and it kind of freaked them out and it scared you a bit because you felt like maybe you crossed a line. Make sure you include that part into it too.
I would love to tell that story. So I started feeling all these things, and then I was getting these, now what I would call like messages that I would translate the vibe. So I'd feel like vibration from women, from their heads or their feet, and even when people walk in. And then I would get a prompting or thought that felt so real about what it was I was feeling. And either it was a thought or an emotion. So, and I developed such extreme compassion for women at that time, because I could feel a lot of sorrow and sadness, resentment. And it was really hard for me because I didn't understand like why I was able to feel all this. And there was, and then when I started like commenting, or I'd say things, and it was really magical for a while. But there was one time where I was sitting there and I just kept getting this message to tell her husband. That's the only message I got. I didn't know what I was supposed to, I don't know what she was supposed to tell him. I don't know why she was supposed to, I don't even know what it was. So I said it, I said, maybe you should tell your husband. And she looked at me and she was like, why are you saying that? And I was like, hey, I just felt that and I wanted to share it with you. And she goes, how would you possibly know anything? And I was like, so it really was disturbing to her. And so then after that, I was like, I am not sharing these messages anymore, because I don't know, is this safe? I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I don't know enough. And I got really nervous about it. So I refrained from doing it for quite some time. And I think I could do this my whole life, because I could go back to even memories as a young girl. And then I just had this like innate ability to feel other people's thoughts and feelings, which is, there's an empath about feeling feelings and connecting emotionally with people like instantly. And I love that gift that I have. And now I've understood it a lot more and how to use it to be helpful, as much as I know how. And then understanding some of these thoughts. And what I would say now here's what I would say is like a scientific understanding, is it's interpreting vibration and frequency and putting it into a thought. Okay, so, and there's a whole thing out there. Thoughts or feelings, which one's first, right? Chicken or the egg? Now, I did a bunch of study around this. Even you mentioned this earlier when you said, think about what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
So now the mind is of the body, right? So how do we interpret the energy force field outside the body? So that's where I constantly, my new thing is always saying, well, how do you feel about that? Because I really believe and know, for me, and I believe I'm like everyone else, so I can interpret that however, that if we ask ourselves how we're feeling and really tune in, and if it's, when you showed that chart,
yep,
if it's that lower vibe, what that's telling you is what you're thinking about is not aligned with your greatest good. So then it really helps you feel where your thoughts are maybe betraying you. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to just share that screen just one more second, just to kind of let people see it there, and just take a second and just explain the vibration, from kind of top to bottom, and how And then maybe that'll be even a transition into kind of how your technology is measuring some of this stuff.
Okay, great. So thank you. And thank you for letting me just talk, because it's fun. And if I need to come back or circle around, that's great. Let me know. Okay, so when we put this together, we wanted first and foremost to show and start to relate when you have a high vibe and what it feels like, and put words to it. Okay, so when you feel love, there's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of movement, and when we talk about vibration, it just has a lot of movement to it. Okay, and like you said earlier, when you're down in despair, it's like feeling stuck, like you almost can't even move. It's very, very slow, and it's because the frequencies are moving slower, right? Where love has a little momentum and higher frequency moving. And momentum, right? And flow, what you might feel like you're in the flow. Like, you know, when you're super creative and you're doing a project and you're like, oh, I got this, and you can just be in flow with it.
Mm-hmm.
You might feel really ambitious and happy and excited, right? But when you're stuck and confused and not having clarity, you're like, it takes you down, and it's hard, and it feels hard, and you feel stuck. So a couple things in that. One thing why we put it in a stair is because a lot of the time, you know, we might feel stuck and we just want to feel joy. Well, if those thoughts keep you from that joy, like if you keep saying this is hard, that's the frequency, a low frequency, right? A low vibration. Joy is such a high vibration. So to think that you're going to make a quantum leap may be unrealistic for you, because the thought that you have is like a habit or a firmer belief, right?
Yep.
So what we offer is, how can you just change it to where it feels real, but a higher vibration, okay? So when people are saying anger and they want to get mad at anger and they're angry about their anger, it's like, hey, be easy on yourself. That's really good. It has more momentum than fear, right? Like, anger's got some momentum to it. It's good that you're feeling angry about that. Like, move that anger through you, because once you start moving that anger and having a different relationship with anger and just being like, all right, anger's here, let's give it some space to be felt. Like, I am mad about that, right? Like,
right.
I'm angry inside. Then you can start to move through it. And then you might say, God, so why did that happen? And now you just moved to confusion. Well, good. Now you're asking a really good question. Instead of there's nothing I can do about it, it's happening to me, which is despair. You're starting to say, no, I'm mad that that happened. And why did that happen? Okay. Then you might start saying, well, how did that happen for me? Whoa, now you just changed a question to take you to a much higher vibration of neutrality, or even, you know what? If that didn't happen, this, and this wouldn't have happened, and that actually was really good for me. Oh, now you're moving to gratitude. So it's really just taking this thing and just find how to move up where it doesn't feel like, don't feel this, just feel happy. Well, that's unrealistic for us as human beings. Like, we need to process through it and give ourselves space to move through that vibrational understanding. So then we can, and the goal would be, okay, how did this happen for me eventually? And you might not be able to do that today because it feels like you're just either stuck or, oh my gosh, like feeling like you're stuck under a rock kind of a thing. Well, the first thing is just move the rock. It's not to jump up and fly away or be flying, right? You got to move the rock. And then you might need to like get stood up a little bit, brush yourself off, take a deep breath, lift your chin, and then you might just start walking, and then you might start feeling better, and then you might start like having a little bit more movement, and then eventually you're running again. But to just think you're going to go from under a rock to running is like that quantum leap, right? So
I'm a big fan of law of attraction, and Abraham Hicks talks a lot. Abraham talks all the time about how you can't like take that, like you can't move from like anger up to love. But you can move from anger up to exhausted or confused, and so it's like this scale is like just a nice way to do it. It doesn't necessarily matter exactly where you are. And I'm sure that there's a little bit of, there's everybody's signature is going to be a little bit different. So, you need to experience what some of these readings are to understand them. But then once you understand them, then you can go, oh my gosh, I'm feeling something maybe I never felt, or I'm not sure what I'm feeling. Well, you can then use your technology to kind of get a reading of where you're at on it. And then once you know that, you're looking at the chart, you're like, oh my gosh. And if you're working with a coach who's helping you through this, then you're having a conversation about it. And it's not just you being stuck inside your head with what you're feeling without words to use and describe it, but you're actually processing it, and you're going, and then you can go, do I want to continue this feeling? Or no, and which direction do I want to move in? And what's a small step I can take in direction that will be a positive direction to go in, as opposed to being frustrated because you can't move all the way up the scale to joy and love.
You know what, Steve, you bring up the most important point on why Vibeonix exists. Okay. It is to first and have enough self-awareness to recognize what is real. Because when we are labeling our confusion as stress, it doesn't give it freedom to move, because it's not the vibration, it's not the right frequency, so it doesn't attract, right? So if you keep saying, oh, I'm just stressed, when you're actually lonely, stress has a different vibe, so it's not welcoming to have a seat at the table, right? You're saying stress. Well, stress isn't even invited. They don't even care to be at your dinner. You want to sit at the table. This is how another visual I've got about this. So imagine yourself having a dinner party with all of your emotions, okay? This is a cool example of I'm going to invite anger. Does that feel real? Yeah, that one feels real. Okay, I'm going to invite anger to have a seat at the table. And then you might say, okay, and you just have to ask yourself the right questions of the level of emotion, so you can find the one that feels real, and then go, oh wow, that one needs to have a seat at the table as well. And it's just intended to feel it so you can move through it. I believe what we're taught in our society is to shame our emotions. Mm-hmm. And to look at them like they're bad, and you don't want them. Like despair is bad, or depression's bad, or anger is bad. Well, in reality, what they're doing and what they're showing you is that operating system is not serving you. That's it. They're not there to hurt you. It's just what you're experiencing. Now, if you wear it around like it is you, that's who you are, and you become it, well, then you're kind of letting that take over, and that becomes your operating system. But if you can look at it, take off it, that's not the shirt I'm going to wear today. That's not who I am. That's just what I'm experiencing. And what is it here to tell me? And look at it like your internal guidance system. Wow, what a different game you're playing. So the first law of attraction is a law of resonance, okay? The law of resonance is vibration. So if you're sitting in the vibration of anger, but wanting to experience love, Abraham Hicks does say this, they are two different frequencies. In order to experience love, you need to attune to that frequency. Mm-hmm. So all the emotion is showing you is, you want to have this experience of joy? Hey, guess what? You got to change some things, because what you're really attuning to is anger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So our emotions are just guiding us to what we want, because we do know this. Energy or emotion is energy in motion. It is what creates that reality. So the law of resonance is what you put out. And we know that the law of attraction is what brings back what you put out, right? Mm-hmm. You are a magnet to what you radiate, what your vibe is, where you vibrate. It goes out there and then brings everything on that same channel. So imagine turning the dial every single morning when you wake up to the experience you want to have that day. Now, can we do this? Absolutely. We are beyond infinite power, right? We can do this. We just have to become self-aware and bring it to our conscious space where we feel and know we can make a choice.
We had Ian checking in. He was saying yes, and I think this one means that you are on fire. So he's loving what we're talking about. So thank you. Yes, she is. Kristi is on fire. I second that, Ian. Hey, I had a conversation the other day, and someone said he described the conversation that he had, and he said, "Oh, this person was really angry," and I was like. I remember thinking he was angry, and really what he was like maybe annoyed, but it was like being described as anger. And so it's like kind of funny that like if we don't know how to properly articulate what it is we're feeling and we're putting the wrong label on it, well that's kind of like a pretty big, like if you're annoyed but it's being described as angry, those are kind of different frequencies and they're not really describing properly. And then that's where confusion can come in terms of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with it. Why is this person angry about that? Well, I can see why they're annoyed about it, but I don't, they're not really angry. So anyway, just this chart, and this technology is helpful not only in understanding what you're feeling, but also in articulating what you're feeling. So that it can be, if we can label things properly, we can then deal with them more accurately. You
are 100% right. So our world today is said happy, sad, mad, glad. But they are actually, this is all they're teaching in school too. I'm going to share with you a very personal experience that I had this last year. And I would imagine my experience is not so unique to me. Now, what I went through is for sure unique to me. Mm-hmm. But I know everyone can probably relate to this emotional awareness I had. So I was in a total funk, okay? And I could feel this funk. Up until 2020, I was like going out all the time. I went to work every day. I had people around me all the time. And I was just feeling like not okay. And what I would say is I was just stuck. Like my vibe was just not familiar, okay? And I went and took our assessment, and my highest score was loneliness. Now, I'm married. I have 4 kids. Every single day I get to talk to amazing people like you, but I'm also a CEO of a company, okay? And I sat with our interpretation of loneliness and how we describe loneliness. And I was like, wow, what do I do with this? Like, and it felt so real. I sat at my kitchen table and just sobbed. Now, I kept thinking it was fear. Now look how close fear and lonely is. Like I must just be fearful of the unknown. And I kept calling it like fear, which in our world we can say anxiety. And oh, that's so acceptable. Okay, I'm going to say I just feel anxious, right? But that didn't feel right. And I would say it and it actually didn't even feel familiar. I'm like, man, what is it? So when I took our assessment, there's my score looking me right at the face. And I was like, that's it. And I just sat there and sobbed because I finally named it. And I said, is this loneliness? And my body just reacted with like, it's lonely. Oh my gosh, you're lonely. So what does that mean? So as a CEO during 2020, if you didn't feel lonely, then I don't know how you were even like, because what I do when I get confused or when I don't know or I am with fear, I start to withdraw. Now, fear was active in my vibe. So is a little confusion and frustration. Those were all active in my vibe, okay? Mm-hmm. But loneliness was the highest. So what I learned about myself is when I start to feel those other emotions that are of resistance, I withdraw. I isolate. I'm also a Cancer. I go into my shell and I'm a little crab, right? Because it's safe in there and I just need to sit with it and figure it out. But I wasn't even sitting with myself to figure it out. I was just doing and trying to fix everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and I thought exhausted would come up. But what it did is it just drove loneliness even more, because I was withdrawing from my husband. I didn't want him to know how scared I was, or I didn't know, or how is money going to keep coming in? And what do we do with all of our employees? Like, what do we do, right? And then I withdrew from my kids because I felt like I didn't know how to show up in my joy. I couldn't attune to my happiness because this loneliness was overwhelming. So anyway, the minute I said it at my table, and I literally just sat and bawled. And then I sat with my team and I said, hey, my biggest score is loneliness. I just need you to support me a little bit in this way. If you feel me withdraw, call me. That's it. And just say, Kristi, we're here. We're not going anywhere. Or it's going to be okay. Like, if you could just, because today I don't know how to give it to myself. I'm struggling a little bit. Could you help me in just this little bit while I work on this? And I will tell you, my team showed up like amazing humans in the world. Like, anytime if they went a day and didn't talk to me, they were messaging me, they were calling me, they were saying, we're here for you, we're going to support you through this, we're in this together. And I'll tell you what, I saw that loneliness score just start to shift. But had I kept calling it stress, or had I kept calling it confusion, I know it wouldn't have moved, because it wasn't real. I wasn't giving it the right name. But once we name it, we can tame it. We can move through it. We can give it a space. We can have it over for dinner, have a little conversation with it, and then send it on its way. And that's really all the emotions are there to teach you, is like, hey, this thing going on is kind of like getting in your way. Like, see what you can reframe and give some new thoughts and ideas and attune to what you really want to experience. So again, in Vibeonix, what we hope to do is educate people about their emotional landscape so they can self-regulate and manage these emotions in a really healthy way. Stop stuffing them down and pretending they don't exist and shaming them, but actually invite them to dinner, give them a space at the table, and then let them go home. Like, just let them move on. You know, I'll give one more reference. I have a 6-year-old son who came to this world not wanting to conform at all, which I love. But when he was 4, I would walk in the door every single day, and he'd run up to and sometimes I'd be on the phone, and I look at this, I'm like, oh, put your phone away, just pay attention. But anyway, I'd be on the phone, or I'd be distracted, and he'd be like, mom, 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 and then he would just get louder and louder. And I realized the first thing I did when I heard him say my name, if I just leaned down, picked him up, gave him a big hug and kiss, and say, hi, honey, I see you. Thank you for being here. I love you so much. And then I'd put him back down, and he would just run off. Well, emotions are the same way. If we just pick them up, don't judge them, just look at them, say, I see you, you're here, what can I do for you? Like, what are you here to tell me or show me? Then they just go on their way. So it's a really different way to think about it.
I really like that you said that you just pick the emotion up, embrace it for a moment, and then let it go away, because it references back to what you said early on in the conversation, that somehow we were shamed or taught to believe that emotions are a bad thing and that we should not acknowledge them and we should stuff them down. So yeah. So Ian did confirm that yes, he says that it was a great talk. He likes that. And Bettina talks about her own experience as an empath and the fact that she loves just this whole resonance, vibration, awareness, moving towards what we truly are to have and what we truly want. And Sandra gives a lengthy conversation here. So I'm not 100% sure what the message is, other than the fact that it's hard work being an empath, absorbing other people's energies. It was really what you were talking about at the beginning. And so it's, it's difficult. It's difficult when we can't set up a boundary for ourselves. And I don't know if people have used your technology and the coachings have used it to work with people who can help set boundaries for people. And I think we need to, we've got about 10 more minutes left. We want to talk about the coaches that you have as part of the team, because really the way to get the most out of this technology is not to just like take the test and like try to interpret it yourself, but work with somebody. So I know you have a community of coaches. They're listed on the website. People can talk with them. How do they use it? How do they use the tool to work with people?
Well, this is a great question, and I want to also reference Sandra in this answer to the question, if you don't mind. And Sandra, sorry. So, that whole thing Sandra was mentioning, I just felt you, and I just want to tell you that you're loved. So, Steve, that was a lot, and I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, and it was really relating to the experience that you had early on when you were the esthetician, and you were feeling the energy people had, and you were like kind of taking it in. Maybe you somehow learned how to boundary that, but anybody who works in this healing modality needs to learn how to boundary that energy from another, and it's not easy to do. It's a skill that can be learned. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I want to tell you what just happened. So Sandra, maybe in what I real quick, we'll just address this. And then I want you to know that every coach that uses our product gets to see it sit with people, especially like you, and just say, how can we gain a really healthy understanding of emotions? And how can you use your gift to be truly helpful in the world? Because there's so many people that are born to feel, and we don't understand it because our society wants to numb our emotion and numb our feelings, and that is your direct connection to source. That is your absolute direct connection. So I would offer to shift that thinking to, I am constantly directed to source, or feeling and connected to. How can I be helpful? And I think that one question starts to give you a different thought process versus feel like, I'm going to say this word boldly, but feeling like a victim to your gift, and shift it into being truly helpful. So in fact, what we just did was, I feel you, and I have so much compassion towards what you have felt in your life. And even what you wrote, I could imagine there's some things that you're still holding on to with this. And it's about, how can I let it move through me and be helpful? And you can't take anyone's stuff on. Just remember that. What you are doing is attuning to it, feeling it. And if you can just say, and thank you. And thank you. Like, thank you for letting me experience that with you. That was beautiful. And how can I be more helpful? Like, and it's like, how can you move through these? Can we name them? Can we invite them to dinner? Can we have a new relationship with them? Because despair is teaching you something so significant. And you're right, with addiction, most people that are feeling, they weren't given the tools to understand what this means and how to move through it and manage it. So they either get on prescription drugs, antidepressants, or they drink alcohol to self-medicate, or do other things that just take them out of this uncomfortable feeling that they're feeling. So I do have a lot of compassion for people that begin to self-medicate, because it's just foreign, and how do we shift that understanding, right? So this is what we do at Vibeonix, and this is what we help our coaches understand. And coaches that are able to identify emotion and help people move through them and increase that emotional intelligence is what the world needs today. So we're launching programs all the time for coaches to add this to their current modality. What we are not is a coaching company, okay? There's thousands of them out there. What we are and offer is an emotional intelligence tool, so you can sit objectively with your clients and say, hey, this is what's coming up right now. How does this feel? Can we start here? And it takes out the continual stories, that the programming. So it kind of takes out that program that got them here, and just says, here's where you are. Where do you want to go from here? Like you said, Steve, earlier, like, where do I want to go from here? How do I give whatever is current a seat at the table and move through it? And when we just start doing that every time we meet with our people, every time we meet with a friend, I mean, I'm doing it all the time with or without the tool because I understand the emotional landscape. So I can sit with people and say, I know what that feels like. Number one, I can have complete compassion for Sandra. What I heard in you was that despair. But I know what that feels like. And I don't know what your experiences are. I don't know where you've been in your life, but I can sit with you there because I'm a human being and I'm on the same emotional scale. And I have given despair a seat at the table. And now I have just complete like compassion for people that are in that space. And what I would urge you to do is take that shirt off. It's not yours. You don't need to sit in it any longer. It's just say, like, I'm ready to move through this. I'm ready to move through that emotion. You don't need to sit in it any longer. It's not yours. And when you give it permission to leave, it's as simple as saying, thank you for showing me what this feels like. I can have complete compassion for the world, and you can go now. The dinner's done. You've had your wine. You stayed long enough. It's time to go. And thank you. And move towards gratitude with every time you experience that emotion. What are you here to teach me? And how can I find gratitude that you came into my life, whether it was from yourself or someone else that you felt it from, right? And then give that back to the people you're around. And start having that kind of dialogue. And that's how an empath can move through this. So, and that's what we teach at Vibeonix, and that's what we hope every coach can learn in their practice, to have that extreme compassion and help people give space to be felt and then move through it.
You're making a difference this morning, so you're doing well, and people are expressing their gratitude, and this is wonderful. We were going to talk about the technology itself. We don't have time to get into that today. Maybe we'll do that some other time. Let's just kind of wrap up, and the key thing that I think people should take away from this interview and this tool that you're creating is that there's lots of people who are out there coaching in the world, and this is a tool that coaches can use to work with their clients to better have a conversation. So it's not based on just the words that are being used, because we know that people don't always use the right words to describe what it is, because we haven't really been taught and trained how to, just like the person who said that somebody's really angry when they were annoyed. And so it's like, if we don't label things correctly, and when you discovered that you were lonely instead of overwhelmed, it changed everything, because that resonated and hit true. So this idea that this technology can kind of give a reading or can give a reading, then maybe it's the more important thing is whether it's the exact emotion, it's going to give you a pretty close to where you're at. So you're right there. And then you just want to start moving one way or the other. And you'll know whether you're feeling loneliness or anger or what it is you're feeling but the conversation can be facilitated. So that's the key thing that you're doing. And you said that you're not a coaching company. You're just providing a tool for the many coaches out there to come and use and access. And they have a whole big toolbox full of things that they work with their clients. So this is just one tool that they can use to help that particular client, where this is going to be the right tool to help them.
Right. And we do have a lot of understanding about coaching. So if you're looking for a platform to manage your clients on, that's what we offer. Okay. And then, our tool sits on this platform. It's wonderful. It's it's all digital. You can get a digital certification. And we wanted everyone to have access to this. So we did a very, very low monthly rate where you can manage your clients, manage their assessments, start to really get to those real conversations instantly. So I'll just tell you really quick, and I know we'll wrap up. You count. That's it. You count for 90 seconds. And why we count is because you don't have that emotional reaction to a topic or subject. So you're just counting, and so you can find your baseline of the emotion that you're attuning to by habit. Okay, so you can start to say, oh, actually, that's what that feeling is. And now I like to sit with this and then move through that. And just know emotions are happening all the time, right? They're happening instantly. You might feel like bipolar in yourself because one minute you're happy and the next minute you're feeling sad. So it's not to judge it. It's just how can we extend longer frequency of happiness, right? How can we give it a space and let it move through us? With the emotions that we want to experience more often, it's just giving it space and then moving through it and attuning to happiness more often, right? And it's just understanding that process. So it's a really beautiful experience. I would suggest anyone go and try it. We want everyone to try it. And if you're a coach who is looking to make a big difference in emotional intelligence in the world and with your clients, and I say always, like, change yourself and you're changing the world, really. Like, look at yourself and your world changes. So you're literally changing the world. But if you are a coach looking for a tool to increase emotional intelligence, get complete trust and respect instantly with your clients to a place of truth, and then move from that space, I would highly recommend. We're launching a new program at the end of this month. We're launching a coaching program where we help you know how to integrate this into your current model and really team up with other coaches that are going through our certification and build a community around this. We'd encourage anyone to join. It's $299 for a 6-week program. And it's led by a therapist, a licensed therapist who is on our team, who's learned how to integrate this into multiple practices.
Kristi Holt, this was a lot of fun. We, I'm a little bit of a gadget guy and like to know how things work. We didn't get into like the technology thing, but that's okay.
I'm coming back, Steve. I'm coming back.
Okay, but I can't play you the song, the first time guest song, that when you come back. So we'll bring you back and we'll have fun. We'll because for me it's just fascinating how it worked and the whole story. I mean, the whole story of how you connected with the person who really pioneered this technology and then partnered up with it. I mean, that is an Abraham law of attraction story. I've never heard one, and I love it. So we'll have to have you back just to share that one story, if nothing else. So my goodness. Well, this is a lot of fun, and you made a difference. Sandra, Rosemary, Sandra, thank you. Ian, Bettina, thanks for being part of today's show. And yeah, this is fun. This resonates with people. People get it, right? It's that vibe. We know this is real, and yet there was no way to actually measure it. And and it was kind of shamed, like don't stuff your emotions down. Certainly, the men of the world boys of the world were told not to, not to experience their emotions. And anyway. We can't solve all the problems in one setting. We can make a difference in this world, can't we?
Yeah, and thank you to your audience. I could feel you today. I just want you to know how much you're loved and keep moving through this. Like your gift is a gift.
All righty. Well, we'll leave that as the last word. Thank you, Kristi, for joining us today. We'll have you back again.
Okay, thank you. Take care, Steve.
Wow, that was a lot of fun. And in the spirit of anybody who knows Abraham, the art of allowing, I just allowed the conversation to flow in the direction that it was supposed to flow today, and it worked out perfectly. And I allowed the guests to join in and participate, and it made a difference in people's lives. So the Vibeonix technology is pretty darn cool, and I'm grateful that I connected with Kristi and we had this conversation, because I just know this is the truth. And now to have science like supporting it, I think it's cool. So there we go. All righty. Now let's get out of here. Tomorrow we're going to be back, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Let's see. There we go. American Gumption. We'll wrap up here. So tomorrow, Greg Thompson, the celebrity impersonator. This guy, Greg M. Thompson, knows more about the celebrity impersonator industry than probably anybody alive today. He is more connected with that, with the people of the industry. I've been a part of the being a celebrity impersonator or a character actor. So that's how I got to know this. But he works in this industry day in and day out. He'll join us tomorrow. We'll have a fun conversation, and maybe we'll throw some pictures up of different impersonators. Who knows what I'll do. Next Tuesday, Amy Gray Cunningham joins us, and I had an Akashic record reading, and we're going to talk about that particular reading. So I'm going to do a little different. I'm going to kind of open that up and let her interview me maybe, and we'll talk about what I experienced, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. Next Wednesday is my last show from the East Coast for about a 3.5 week period. I'm going to go out on the road. I'm going to fly to California and drive back across the country, stopping at various places along the way. I'll tell you all about that as it gets going. And we might end up shifting the time of the show a little bit during that time as I'm traveling, just to accommodate me being in the right place at the right time. So anyway, we'll figure all that out. But plan to be live next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from the Gumption headquarters right here. And then after that, I'll be on the road for about 3.5 weeks. So, okay, tomorrow, Greg Thompson, we will see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Everybody, we appreciate your being here. Thanks to everybody for joining us this morning. We will see you all tomorrow.